Example number 7. Last example for section 9.3. And we're going to go ahead and solve these guys again. And we're going to use the aid of the U substitution. So we're going to find a U that substitutes for this. And so this is just like example number 5 here. So let's go ahead and rewrite this in terms of U. So the way we do that is we take our first term and we say what's squared is x plus 3 squared. So what squared is x plus 3 squared? Well, it's the same thing as that, right? X plus 3 squared is the same as x plus 3 squared. So we call this guy right here our U. That's our U. Okay, so let's rewrite this in terms of U. So we'll get 5u squared. Again, I just replace this with U. Plus 9 times U. I replace this with U because that's what U is. And that minus 2 equals 0. And that's because I subtracted 2 from both sides to put it in standard form. Okay? All right, well, it looks like this is probably going to be factorable. So we can go ahead and do our judo x. What the? 5 times negative 2 gives us our negative 10. And our 9 goes in the bottom. So two numbers that multiply and give us negative 10 and add to get 9. So let's see here. Oh, a little bit of the trickly. Let's see, 10 and 1. I want a negative 10 but a positive 9 on the bottom. So let's do like that right there. 10 times a negative 1 is negative 10. 10 plus negative 1 is positive 9. All right, so that means we rewrite this whole thing here. So 5u squared. But I rewrite 9u as 10u minus u. So 10u minus u. And then bring down your minus 2 equals 0. Okay? Now let's factor this by grouping. So put the first 2 terms in parentheses and the second 2 terms in parentheses. Oops, that parentheses should actually not go over there. Bing. Should go right here. All right, the GCF of 5u squared and 10u, they each have a 5u in common. So I'm going to bust out a 5u. And what goes back inside? Well, a u plus 2. How do you know that? Well, look, you just do 5u times u. See, that's 5u squared. 5u times 2 is 10u. So you always want to go back and just multiply it real quick to make sure that we get the same thing. Now, they each have a negative 1 in common, so I'm going to bust out that negative 1, and I'm going to get a u plus 2. Negative 1 times u, negative u. Negative u times, negative 1 times 2 is a negative 2. Okay? So look, since they both have this in common, and they always should have those parentheses as the same, that's one of our factors. And then what we have left, we have a 5u minus 1. 5u minus 1, and that equals 0. So what we do now is we set each factor equal to 0. So we'll come over here. Let's set u plus 2 equals 0. And the other one is 5u minus 1 equals 0. Well, we subtract 2 from both sides. So we get u equals negative 2. This guy, let's add 1 to both sides. Get 5u equals 1. And then we'll divide by 5. Again, the way that we solve equations, you always do the opposite operation. The opposite of adding 2 is subtracting 2. The opposite of subtracting 1 is adding 1. The opposite of multiplying by 5 is dividing 5. Okay, that's how you know to solve equations. So u equals negative 2 and u equals 1/5. But we're not trying to solve for u. Nope. We're trying to solve for x. So we have to replace the u with x plus 3. So really, this is x plus 3 equals negative 2. And over here, this is x plus 3 equals negative 2. Oops, 1/5. 1/5. All right, so let's go ahead and solve this guy right here. So I'm just going to subtract 3 from both sides. Wata. So x equals negative 5. And right here, we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. So x equals, here, like I'll go ahead and show the work here. 1/5 minus 3 means we have to get a common denominator, right? So I'm going to multiply this top and bottom by 5, right? So 1 minus 15 is negative 14, and they both have a common denominator of 5. So x equals negative 5, and x equals negative 14/5. Cool beans. Let's do another example. Example B. And we want to go ahead and do the same fashion. Let's rewrite this. So it looks like AU squared plus BU plus C equals 0. Okay, so let's first write this in standard form, put all the terms on the same side. So I'm going to subtract 3x to the 1/3. And I'm also going to subtract 1 from both sides. So we'll have 4x to the 2/3 minus 3x to the 1/3 minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so if you're wondering, oh, well, how do we know which one goes first? I mean, because normally we put the squared first and then the x term, but it's kind of different here. So you put the biggest exponent first. So since 2/3 is bigger than 1/3, this is going to be our leading term. So this is the one that we're going to use right now and say what squared is equal to x to the 2/3. Okay, so that's how you know what term to use. You just look at the one that has the biggest exponent. Okay, so this guy is going to be x to the 1/3. Because isn't 1/3 times 2 2/3? 2 times 1 is 2. And then the 3 times the 1 on the bottom right here is just 3. So we're just using our rules of exponents when you multiply them right there. So this guy right here is our u. Let's go ahead and rewrite this in terms of u now. So that's 4u squared. Again, since this is u squared is this guy right here, okay? Minus 3 times u, okay, because we replaced the x to the 1/3 with u. And then minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so is this factorable? I hope so. Let's go ahead and try factoring this. 4 times -1 is a -4. And then we put the -3 on the bottom. So two numbers that multiply and give us -4, add to get -3. Oh, let's see here. I believe it's just going to be 4 and 1. But we need a negative on the 4. Because -4 times 1 is a -4. -4 plus 1 is -3. All right. Hopefully these factoring problems now are becoming much easier because we've been doing a lot of them. So now we bring this guy down. And so we'll write 4u squared. Instead of writing -3, we write minus 4u plus u. Minus 4u plus u. Again, that's the same thing as -3u. And then we do our minus 1. Factor by grouping. Heck yeah. So put parentheses around the first two terms, and then parentheses around the second two terms. Pull out the GCF, which is a 4u. 4u. So what do we have left inside? We have u minus 1. 4u times u is 4u squared. 4u times -1 is -4u. And then here, see how the u minus 1 and the u minus 1 are already the same? So really, we're just going to pull out a 1 then. Okay, so when it's the same, I mean, you could pull out a 1 out of everything because 1 times u and 1 times -1 is the same thing. So really, you can pull out the 1 there. Since those are the same, that's one of our factors, u minus 1. And then 4u and plus 1. So 4u plus 1. Cool beans. So now we set each factor equal to 0. So let's go and take these guys. So we have u minus 1 equals 0. This guy right here, u minus 1 equals 0. And then this guy, 4u plus 1 equals 0. 0 to hero. All right, let's add 1 to both sides. So u equals 1. Come over here. Subtract 1 from both sides. So we get 4u equals -1. Then we divide by 4. So we get u equals -1/4. Okay? But is that what are we trying to solve for u or x? X. Good job, mija. All right, so let's solve for x, right? So that means we have to replace the u with x to the 1/3. So this u is actually x to the 1/3 equals 1. And then this right here is going to be x to the 1/3 equals -1/4. All right, so the question is, how do we solve these guys? Now, this is interesting. Okay, so our goal is to solve for x, right? We want to solve for x. So if you want to solve for x, we want to get rid of the 1/3, right? So, you know, if I were to just put a piece of paper over this, like, oh, look, the 1/3's gone. Well, we can't just, erase it or put a piece of paper over it. So how do we mathematically get rid of the 1/3? Well, what we want to do here is the opposite of raising to the 1/3 is raising to the third power. Because look, 1/3 times 3, isn't that just going to be 3 over 3? 3 times 1 is 3. And then over 3 divided by 3 is just 1. So really, those cross out, and I'm left with just x. You see? And 1 to the power of 3 is just 1. Same thing right here. Raise both sides to the power of 3. Because that 3, when I multiply 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 divided by 3 is just 1. So I get x equals. Now I have to raise negative 1 and 4 to the power of 3. So negative 1 to the power of 3 means negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1, which is a negative 1. Okay? Negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. And then on the bottom, we have to do foe times foe times foe. That's going to be 60 foe. I know you know. Thicky, yeah, whoa. All right, so that's going to be negative 1 over 64. And I think we have our two answers for x. Cool beans. And that concludes this section.